and the way it involved opium dealings at the time, and the general hostility between China and Japan.
I mean, for all this political satire and for all this careful research, I mean, the main thrust of the books is comic.
The story, of course, is absolutely important, the details and all the rest, but in the end, the unforgettable Captain Haddock, who is every bad child, Calculus, who is the school swot, Snowy, who is the disobedient baby. All these are characters that a child can recognise and enjoy.
Well, my favourite character is Snowy because he says like really rude things, and Tintin doesn't know because he can't hear what Snowy says because he's a dog.
One of my favourite bits is when he keeps being bumped into by people and he gets really annoyed, and then the cork lands on his back when someone's opening a champagne bottle.
Most of the books after the war have this great character comedy. And really, it's all the things in Hergé's own life enshrined in his friends, the Thompson twins, with the bowler hats and umbrellas. Well, Hergé's own father and his father's brother used to go around with bowler hats and umbrellas singing the whole time. So that's where they came from. And Bianca Castafiore, well, there's a strong suspicion that may have been Hergé's aunt, because every Sunday they used to have to go around to listen to her play the piano and sing at the top of his voice, and Hergé couldn't bear operatic songs after that.
The funniest character, I'd say, would have to be Professor Calculus. He takes everything seriously, but the problem of his deafness tends to make everything go completely mad.
There was this absent-minded professor he used to see in the street. He was determined to get an absent-minded professor like this into the books, and you see several absent-minded professors in the books until he finally hits on Calculus. And Haddock, in turn, is based on the man he used to write with at that time.
Captain Haddock, well, it's a lot of people I know, but it's a friend of mine. He looks to a certain Jacobs, who was a cartoonist in Belgium also. And he's just like Captain Haddock, full of movement and heartily, but bursting into invectives, yes.
Captain Haddock is funny because of how he's gets angry so easily, and he's always saying pirate things, and it's really funny.
And in Tintin in Tibet, when the Yeti gets drunk, he calls him you big buffoon and calls him funny names.
We had to get his two key phrases of blistering barnacles, which could be expanded into billions of bilious blue blistering barnacles being barbecued, and his thundering typhoons, which could also be expanded. But I used some of the books on the shelf. Methuen did natural history books, so Mammals of the World could provide things like odd-toed ungulate or cushion-footed quadruped. And it was quite ordinary ones, like a duck-billed platypus, but it sounds very good when roared by the captain.
The backgrounds, the settings, whether it's a town in India or the decks of a 17th century warship, all these characters are real individual ones. It's an astonishing mixture, and this is where I think his genius is at his best, of getting reality and then creating something on top of that reality.
10, 9, 8, go for main engine start, 7, 6. We have main engine start, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have SRB ignition, and the history's largest astronaut crew is on its way.
Houston controlling now. All main engines running at 100%. Maneuver to put the ship at its 57-degree inclination.
Hey, there's the cape that is clear today. Okay, here's what I want you to see.
The two Moon books, Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon, were absolutely the peak of Hergé's technical wizardry, because he decided to mount Tintin's expedition to the Moon 19 years before the real thing.
I
think it's good because Neil Armstrong obviously hadn't landed on the moon, and it's fun to see the way they imagine the suits, where it's not actually like normal suits, it's like swimming suits.
Everything is fairly true to life, like gravity on the moon's surface and oxygen. It's quite exciting.
Okay, Crip, we're going LOS, and we won't be talking to you until Vandenberg at 9+30. We'd like you to dump tank A down to 70%.
When the captain goes for a glass of whiskey, the whiskey in the glass forms itself into a ball. Now that was a piece of scientific theory, he based that on, which was way, way ahead of its time.
And he consulted Alexander Ananoff, who's a professor who'd written this book, Astronautique, and he was very influential on Hergé's planning. And Hergé designed, having consulted the professor, he designed this rocket. It was nuclear-powered, and apparently it almost certainly would have worked, apart from one tiny little detail, and there was a mistake in the propulsion system that Patrick Moore noticed when he sent plans to check over. The main reason Hergé built this model was because he was very, very keen by this stage in doing his books, plotting them like cinema films. So what he wanted to do, him and his assistant Bob Demore, who did the book, what they wanted to be able to do is to see any stage, any part of the rocket from any other section, so that they could just get any shot they liked. They could have somebody by this wall, by that wall, and wherever they wanted to take them from, they could. So if they had a man over here, and they could take this section out, just shoot, as it were, across this way. And he and Bob Demore worked on these books for 4 years and were just extremely careful to get everything right. The one mistake they made, sadly, was that they forecast that there would be ice on the moon. Destination Moon particularly is a very, very technical book. It's full of scientific explanation, which makes it his driest work in many ways. But he leavened that with some of the funniest stuff he's ever written, particularly when Professor Calculus completely loses his memory and is goaded back to sanity by Captain Haddock calling him a goat.
There's a funny bit where Thompson and Thompson grow loads of hair and it keeps on growing, and they have to cut it every 5 seconds or so.
When he'd finished the Moon books, I mean, he'd really taken the action-adventure exploring thing to its limits. He couldn't go anywhere else. He was becoming a little unhappy in his personal life with the pressure of this great success, because everyone was on to him to do the next big adventure, etc. And he was having these disturbed dreams, very white dreams, and he decided to draw his unhappiness out in a book. And that's when you get this incredible abrupt change to Tintin in Tibet.
Well, all are my children, of course, but one of them I prefer perhaps a little more because it's called Tintin au Tibet. It's a story without weapons, without violence, just a story, I should say a love story, but it's a friendship story, just that.
It was very, very dear to him, the Tibet book, I think for 2 reasons. One was the character Chang, who had been his boyhood friend, and this is a classic story of lost and found. The other thing, of course, is the mystical element in Tibet. It's not a straightforward, earthy story at all, and that side of Hergé, which doesn't come out a great deal, certainly comes out in Tibet.